next business in SAN 24 2030 is a leader in biotechnology space, especially based on genomics revolution and gene editing based on the CRISPR-Cas9 technology, and as well as they're doing revolutionary innovations in immunotherapy based on the CAR T technology, partnering with many of the medical leaders and therapeutic and biotechnology companies. The firm is called Crispr Therapeutics. Crispr Therapeutics is one of the leaders, I would say, and as well as a pioneer in the gene editing space, and they have been successfully doing so, even curing many of the uncurable and unthinkable diseases in the world. This is going to be a revolutionary business the next decade, and let's analyze in detail why Crispr Therapeutics is part of SAN 24 2030 list.
So analyzing Crispr Therapeutics with your management and business overview. Crispr Therapeutics, headed by Dr. Samarth Kulkarni as the CEO and president, is a leading gene editing company. As I said in the intro, it's focused on the development of transformative medicines using the CRISPR/Cas9 gene editing platform. Now, CRISPR-Cas9 is a revolutionary and futuristic biotechnology practice that allows for precise directed changes to genomic DNA. Now, CRISPR stands for clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. Yeah, that sounds complex, but what it really means is, like, there are evenly interspaced small short DNA repeats, and the genes are evenly placed, they are interspaced, and CRISPR genome editing technology has taken off in recent years, curing diseases that were once declared uncurable by the medical fraternity. So diseases like cancer, beta thalassemia, many of the complex diseases that were once declared incurable have started showing signs of green shoots with CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology. Now, the human genome is composed of 3.2 billion base pairs of DNA or lines of code, very complex in nature, a single error in which could cause disease like cancer. A single error is also called as a mutation of the DNA's gene cells. Now, when a virus invades bacteria, its unique DNA is integrated into a CRISPR sequence in the bacterial genome. This means that whenever the next time the virus attacks, the bacteria will remember it and sends the RNA and Cas to locate and destroy the virus. So this is the underlying mechanism on how that virus is destroyed using the Cas9 protein. Cas9 is basically a protein that has a capability to cut and remove destroy the virus, and RNA is the guided target guided RNA which will locate the gene which has to be cut and replaced. It's a very simple, if you put it in a very simple terms, it's like the find and replace in your Word document. So you look up, so the looking up is done by the guide RNA that will locate the targeted gene. Then the CRISPR associated protein called Cas9 will cut or strip the mutated DNA out, and the desired part of piece of DNA then is inserted after the break. Sounds very simple, but God only knows how complicated that is in terms of the technology and in the therapeutic segment. Now, but this, whatever said and done, this has started seeing green shoots. This has started seeing positive signs in treatments. Patients have started reacting and responding to these kind of treatments, and we will get into those details down the line. So there is picture of Dr. Samarth Kulkarni, who is the CEO and president of Crispr Therapeutics. Now, here is a pictorial way. It shows the CRISPR-Cas9 revolution. It has a specific, efficient, and versatile tool for editing genes. This is taken out of the CRISPR's annual report. That pictorial representation showing how the disruption happens. There is a mutated gene, then that mutated gene is located by the guide RNA and it is deleted off the space, and the desired piece of DNA is then corrected, that is a corrected or desired piece of DNA is then inserted into that space after the break. This is a whole CRISPR-Cas9 technology. Now, where are they applicable, or what kind of business segments they operate in? There are 4 highlighted areas I have put in, and I have explained each area in detail. Now, the first segment is obviously the CRISPR technology itself. In the clinic, they are advancing well with CTX001. That's how the naming terminologies are in these therapeutics, and this CTX001 is targeted in beta thalassemia. It's a type of disease, and a sickle cell disease. These are the 2 diseases they are targeting to start with. They are basically blood disorders caused by mutations in the beta globulin gene. And CRISPR Therapeutics and Vertex Pharmaceuticals have reported that the first 2 patients to receive an experimental gene editing treatment for sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia have experienced clinical benefits, which means that they have started showing symptoms of recovery. And the treatment called CTX001 uses CRISPR to edit the BCL11A gene. That's the gene which they are trying to edit and replace, which modulates the hemoglobin HbF, thereby increasing the HbF production. So that is one area where they have successfully, 2 disease areas basically, where they have started advancing in the CRISPR therapeutics. Now the next segment is the next generation immuno-oncology, that is cancer treatment platform, providing gene edited allogenic cell therapies. They are branding it as CTX110, CTX120 and CTX130. Now 2 years back, US FDA approved the first 2 CAR T cell therapies, which were autologous, which means that they are patient specific. So autologous is nothing but they are edited from their own patient's own T cells, and a subtype of white blood cells, that's the T cells, and are collected from their blood, preserved and shipped to a manufacturer, genetically engineered to recognize and attacks the patient's cancer cells by modifying the T cells receptors. Now T cells, it's also called as chimeric antigen receptors, that's a CAR T cell therapy, and then reintroduced into patient via infusion. But the problem with autologous is, which means that taken from the patient's own self specific blood cells, is that it is the limitation is that it's from the same patient, so it cannot be applied across, and the treatment is restricted. Now due to multiple other limitations of autologous therapies, research is now pushing towards the next generation of CAR T therapies, that is chimeric antigen receptor T cell therapies. It's now they are targeting allogenic, which is more expanded view. It's off the shelf treatments that can be mass manufactured from a healthy donor cell. So it is off the shelf, that is, it's not taken from the same patient, it's taken from a healthy donor, like other donor and transplantations that happens. There is a donor cell that is used, it could be used for multiple patients, so the application could be broad level. It's not targeting taken from the same patient and targeting the same patient for infusion. It is more of a broad level, like a healthy donor giving it for multiple patients. And the multi-center open label clinical trial is designed to enroll up to 95 patients and investigate several dose levels of CTX110. Now if CTX is successful, CTX110 could enable off the shelf use of cell therapies and greatly expand their applicability and accessibility in immuno-oncology, particularly its cancer treatment. That's why it's immuno-oncology, and it could greatly expand applicability if it's off the shelf, and if it's allogenic chimeric antigen receptor CAR T treatment. Now they are also, how CRISPR is playing there, CRISPR Therapeutics is playing there, it's by they are partnering with, and they are serving many customers in this area in immuno-oncology. Now the third enablement is on the regenerative medicines 2.0 with CRISPR-Cas9 edited allogenic stem cells. Now they have partnered with ViaCyte, which is another player, another biotechnology player, which is aiming to develop beta cell replacement product to treat diabetes that does not require immunosuppression like insulin. So this is a great field to play in, especially it will help benefit immensely for many patients, because diabetes is a large segment of patients are suffering from diabetes, and the impact is way too high. Because of diabetes, people tend to lose out even lives because of complications caused by diabetes. And so this is a great innovation in allogenic stem cells, and let's hope that they venture and be more successful so that more patients are saved in the world. Now advancing in vivo, however you pronounce it, vivo applications based on in-license technology. So vivo is nothing but it means that it is tried and tested on humans and animals, humans particularly. So adeno-associated virus AAV vectors for neuromuscular indications and lipid nanoparticles LNPs for liver indications, partnering with Stride Bio, MIT and CureVac. This is another area where they are using vivo applications medicines, and partnering with many of the biotechnology firms and MIT. They are developing medicines on that. Now, revenues, profitability, cash flow, and balance sheet analysis. Not much to discuss here because it's a venture. CRISPR-9 Therapeutics is one of the ventures, along with a couple of other players called there are a couple of other players who are in this industry of therapeutics, that is specifically targeting gene editing. They are Editas and Intellia. So they are just very few countable handful of players who are still doing a lot of research and coming up with innovation, and this is great thing for human future, because humanity is largely impacted by many of the non-curable diseases like cancer, diabetes. Diabetes is still curable to great extent, to still treatable, but these guys are in a great innovative field of industry, and they are targeting many of these non-curable segments through therapeutics and brilliant CRISPR-Cas9 technology. Now, but then I would say they are at a point of inflection in the last 2 years. In 2019, CRISPR Therapeutics total collaboration revenue was $219 million compared to $3.1 million in 2018. Now look at that comparison. That's a whopping difference, right? Where is 3.1 million, where is $290 million? Now the increase in revenue was primarily attributable to revenue recognized in connection with the company's collaboration agreements with Vertex. Vertex is a very large pharmaceutical company, biotechnology company, and the company generated cash from operations in the current year of $56.7 million. So it's become cash positive operationally, driven by cash received from Vertex for the milestone and option payments of $208 million, as well as cash obtained from the Bayer transaction. Bayer is another large player in the bio and pharmaceutical industry. Bayer transaction of $31.8 million, which is offset by obviously operating expenses. Now, research and development is a significant portion of their expenses, because that is their main raw material. The research is the key to advance more and more as more and more patients successfully completes clinical trials. Now the R&D expense was $179.4 million in 2019. Look at that, 65% of revenue spent on R&D, which is formidable, which is important to create a formidable company in the future, and is very high due to the nature of the business they are in, gene editing treatments and broadening of immuno-oncology platforms. Net income was positive again, $66.9 million for the year 2019 compared to the loss of $165 million in 2018. Now operating margin was 16% in 2019, so they are pretty high margin business. Now I wanted to show that graph that shows the comparative figures of revenue in 2018 and 2019. Now that's a exponential growth strategy. This is what happens with these kind of businesses. They are growing now exponentially, right? From almost negative or zero to all the way to $290 million. That's a 290% growth, right? And this is what happens when they start getting more and more successful patients being treated. Not only it's great for humanity, it's great for even the business part of the segment, and the exponential growth pattern is pretty clear there. With more trials are becoming successful, more and more clients are signing up for therapeutics. Partnerships will start growing with more biotechnology players and pharmaceutical players who wants to leverage and use gene editing treatments will sign into contracts. Now they have a cash of $950 million, roughly $1 billion. So they're cash rich. They have only a negligible debt of $50 million compared to the cash. Free cash flow is still great, $50 million, and market cap is $3.2 billion. This is because it's not highly capex or capital intensive, but it's more OPEX, where they have to, it's like a self-reinforcing model where they will keep getting the free cash flow and they plow it back into the the operating profits are put in back into the R&D, and they just keep innovating. Now, company is merely valued at $3.2 billion, where the total addressable market could be even go up to $100 billion over the next decade. There are only 3 to 4 players, handful of players competing in CRISPR Therapeutics in gene editing space, like Intellia, Editas Medicine, and these are all roughly around $2 billion, $1 billion, $3 billion market cap companies. Now, they are trading at 55 times earnings, still pretty okay compared to the future potential, and the company just turned operationally positive and commercially positive in 2019. Now, final slide, why I think CRISPR Therapeutics will be a great business to hold in hindsight, or any of these Editas or Intellia in this therapeutic segments, especially targeting gene editing, because CRISPR Cas9 based gene editing will pave the way for future treatment of most diseases which are non-curable today, like cancer. Not only in cancer, even in the high-end very difficult complex viruses that is causing pandemics in the world could be treated by these kind of therapeutics in the future. It's a powerful technology where guide RNA will locate the error of mutation, as we saw pictorially. The Cas9 breaks them and the DNA sequence, and bioengineered vehicle inserts the correct piece of DNA. Now, it's advanced to clinical trials, treating patients successfully. Couple of patients were trially successfully treated for beta thalassemia, as we saw, and sickle cell diseases. And CRISPR Therapeutics is one of the market leader in this space. Now, they have an addressable market in the disease space, totals more than $100 billion annually, including the IP business as well, where they can partner with other biomedical firms, and they are poised to grow big. There are only few players, as we saw, in the gene editing space, and CRISPR has a leading advantage with their advancements and treatments. There are other addressable market spaces in addition, like agriculture and immunotherapy, as we saw earlier. Per unit cost of testing and therapeutic treatments, cost will come down as more and more patients start testing. That's a scale advantage, and the scale, once a critical mass or the scale is achieved, it will improve the volume with number of new treatments with more patients signing up. Now, affordability and accessibility will improve, which will bring down the cost on the cost curve, and that will aid more patients to come out of such diseases successfully, and will gain more partnership contracts with new customers in the biotechnology industry. Overall, very niche segment, market leader in that space, brilliant technology which will be great for humanity as well as great for the business and as well as shareholders if you really hold this business for the next 10 years. I hope this was useful. Thank you.